Hey everyone, Happy New Year. Don't adjust your your video or your YouTube channel. You are on the right channel. This is PilotNas. Wanted to try something a little different in 2023. Just a little bit about me if this is your first time on this channel. I am a commercial pilot with an instrument rating. I also am a multi-engine private pilot, and I'm working on my multi-engine commercial, and I'm hoping to take that check ride soon once the weather does clear up. So today we're at Sacramento Executive. We're going to do a touch and go. Today I'll be flying the Cessna 172 Skyhawk with the G1000 panel. So this aircraft, the 172, is the most produced aircraft in the world. Everybody, whenever they think of general aviation, they always say Cessna. There are other companies, Pipers, Cirrus, Moonies. There are other aircraft out there, but most people always recognize the Cessna with the high wings. My first training back in 1995 when I first started to fly was in a Cessna 150. A little smaller than this. We do have a 150 in this game. The plan is to fly them different places, and we won't stick with general aviation. We are going to go with airlines, the 737, the 787, the 747, the A320. We'll fly the Cirrus, the Vision Jet, I think we have the Cessna Longitude, the Cessna CRJ. We have the Beechcraft, the Piper. So, I mean, again, the list goes on in this game, and I will definitely start recording more videos and flying. Just wanted to kind of let you know what the plan is moving forward in 2023. I really want to try to kind of promote this channel. I'm hoping that 2023 I can kind of get more. Right now I think I have 43 subscribers. Let's see if I can get 100 subscribers in 2023. Maybe I get more, maybe I don't. But that's the goal, is I want to try to hit 100 subscribers in 2023 if that's possible. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. We're right now sitting on basically the ramp here at Sacramento Executive. We're going to fire this plane up. Again, just to let you know, I'm using some sim items here. I have the Honeycomb Alpha yoke, and I have the Honeycomb Bravo throttle coordinate, and I'm using the Thrustmaster rudder pedals. All right, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and start this thing up. So let's go ahead and just make sure that, okay, so we have looks like our fuel selector is on both. We have our fuel shutoff valve on. We're going to go ahead and make the yoke disappear. We are going to go ahead and turn on our master switch. Get a full mixture. We're going to put the throttle in just a little bit here, a 1/4 inch. We're going to turn on our beacon to let everybody know. And then usually in a real situation, you would open up the window and just yell out clear prop. And so then that's just to warn everybody that you are going to start the airplane. Okay, so here we go. Let's get it started. Right, perfect. Then we just want to look. We're looking at the oil temperature, oil pressure. Looks like it is going in the green. Now we want to turn on our avionics. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and push enter there. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and listen to ATIS. Just to let everybody know, I'm not a flight instructor, so please just, this is for entertainment purposes only. If you have any questions about anything I'm doing, if you are flying, if you are learning, I would definitely, first talk to a certified flight instructor. I'm going to do what I've learned, and I've been flying, like I said, since 1995, so, I'm just going to use my experiences. Okay, let's go ahead and listen to the ATIS. So we have Alpha. Looks like we're taking off runway 30. And it looks like our altimeter is 29902, which is the pressure altitude. Yeah. Okay, so we're ready to go. Let's go ahead and get going. And we're going to go ahead and turn on our taxi light. We're going to go ahead and release our parking brake. And we're going to go ahead and get started. Right, I hope everybody had a great New Year's and a great holiday season. Man, we're 2023. So, right, so we're going to go ahead and taxi. This is actually Taxiway Bravo in real life. Now, there is something, for some reason, in Microsoft Flight Simulator and in Microsoft FSX, they still have this runway 16 and 34, which is actually no longer active. The only runways they have is runway 20 and 2 and runway 30 and 12. So, but for some reason in this game they still have it. Don't know why they haven't updated it. I'm kind of a little confused. Right, so we're going to go ahead and continue taxiing runway 30. Again, we are going to take off. We're going to do touch and go, and then we're going to come back around, and then we'll do our full stop landing, and we'll go from there. Perfect. So we're moving up here. Again, so the goal is to fly other aircraft, to go ahead and, like our next flight, we might continue to use this plane because usually if you're going to start training, if you're trying to get into flight training, if you want to become a pilot, most likely you're going to be in a Cessna 172. Now, there are places out there that have the Diamond aircraft. There are places out there that you can train in the Cirrus, But, for the most part, most schools will have a Cessna 172. Now, they might not have kind of like this model here, which is like an S model. And then with the G1000, you might have the traditional six-pack, which is just the kind of the analog gauges, which we have that. And I can definitely hop into that plane and kind of explain all the different, what the instruments do and stuff like that. Now, whenever you have the glass cockpit, the nice thing about this is you have everything right in front. You have your altimeter, you have your airspeed indicator, you have your heading indicator, you have basically your what is it called? Your VSI, which is your vertical speed indicator, and stuff like that. So these are things that are already in front of you where you're not having to look around. When you kind of have, which is not a big deal. Again, it's just usually, the six-pack started on the Cessna 172N model and newer models than that. The ones before that are kind of, and I want to say all over the place. They did kind of maintain, but really the six-pack kind of started when the N model of the Cessna came out. And I think we are up to, the S model, SP, and things like that. Okay, so we're here holding short at runway 30. We're going to go ahead and turn on our strobes and our landing lights. And we are going to get going. So we take off here. We're going to rotate at 55. So that's what we rotate. We usually want to climb out between 70 and 80. And that's what we'll climb out at. Okay, so what we want to do is really don't see an airplane landing. We want to check both ways. The reason you check both ways is for some reason an airplane might have taken off and they had an emergency. They haven't really had a chance to call anyone. They turn around and come back and land on the runway. So you always want to check fun. Also, sometimes, the tower might give us clearance to take off and they're also giving us somebody else clearance to land. And then, both of you guys are going to collide. Another thing is that if you're at an uncontrolled airport, there is no tower. So you're actually looking out for other aircraft, And when I say uncontrolled, it's technically really pilot controlled because you are communicating to everybody in the area what your intentions are. So again, I checked final. It looks clear. Check the left, check the right. We're going to go ahead and take off. Now we're going to do left traffic, which what that means is we're going to do like left turns all the way back to the runway. Left turn. Now sometimes you might do right turns, but usually the standard is left turns. The reason why is because you're on the left-hand side and you're looking at the runway, you're looking at that you're turning and stuff like that. So you're always turning to the left because you're seeing on the left. Now, if you are on the right side, like let's say you're a certified flight instructor and stuff like that, you might want to do right side because that's easier. Now, again, just because it's easier wherever you're sitting doesn't mean like you will sometimes get, okay, enter right traffic, even though you're on the left side. So again, it's just up to the tower. It's up to what the traffic flows. And sometimes they'll split it up. They'll have one guy, one person go left, another person go right. You know what I mean? So you're having two, if the airport's busy and stuff like that, that's what will happen. Okay, so again, enough of me talking. We're going to go ahead and take off. We're going to give us some power here. Perfect. All right, so after we do our two touch and goes, we'll go back. We'll talk about the aircraft, and then eventually We're going to get in more. We're going to go. Our next flight will be somewhere. We will fly somewhere. Most likely we'll fly in this airplane. This airplane is pretty nice, has autopilot and things like that. So, and then you got your moving map. Okay, so we are lined up on the center line. So we're going to put our heels on the ground. We're going to go ahead and give us full power. Again, and once we get to 55, we're going to rotate. There we're at about 30. Now, so we got airspeed is alive. Our engine instrument's in the green. Our RPM is at 2,500 right there. And there we go. So we little past the 50. So there we go. We're going to lift the nose up. And again, we're climbing out between 70 and 80 is what you want to climb out. And then usually we would turn, basically we'll turn, once we get to 500 feet, we're going to go ahead and make a left turn. So we always want to try to maintain center line once we take off. Okay, so there's 500. I'm going to go ahead and turn. Okay, so maintaining. And then the traffic pattern altitude here is 1,000 feet. So once we get to 1,000 feet, we're going to level off. Okay, so now we are on the crosswind. Now we're going to go ahead and turn downwind. So as you can see, we're just doing, basically just imagine a racetrack, an oval one, and we're just making left turns. Okay, so there's 1,000, so we can go ahead and reduce power to about 1,800. Okay, and there we go. We are at, so basically if we look outside, there we are. We are basically parallel on runway 30 where we just took off. So we're going to just maintain this altitude at 1,000 feet. You know, we're at 85 knots, which is a good speed there. And we are starting to descend a little. You know, again, traffic pattern altitude is 1,000. So you don't want to go above 1,000, but if you're a little bit below, that's, you know, not really an issue. But it's good to try to maintain that 1,000 feet. So if we need to, we'll go ahead and lift up. The goal is once we get a beam the numbers, which if you can see there in the distance, you'll see number 30. Then we'll basically reduce power to 1,500. We'll give one notch of flap. So here you go. Okay, so we did that. So we're going to go ahead and reduce power to 1,500 RPM. Okay, it looks like I went a little too slow. Then I'm going to go ahead and put one notch of flaps. Then we'll be starting our descent now. And the goal is we're looking to the end of the runway, and we basically, once that runway, imagine a line from the number 30 all at a 45-degree angle to our aircraft, right? That means what's happening there is that's when we are going to want to start our turn. Now, if you're flying and there's a tower giving you instructions, he might tell you continue on your downwind leg and things like that. So it looks like we're good because I don't see any other aircrafts in the vicinity there. So I'm going to go ahead and turn to my base leg. This is considered a base. So when you take off, it's called upwind. Turning, you know, it's crosswind. And then when you're going down, it's kind of downwind. When I mean down, it's basically when you're coming back. Okay, so there's the runway. We're at 600 feet. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to give ourselves a next notch of flaps. And we're slowing down a little bit. So we want to be around 70 once we're on the kind of that base leg. Okay. And then we should see the runway coming up there. Perfect. There it is in sight. Now, I don't know if you could see in the distance, there's those two white, like little white dots on the left side. Not the blinking ones. There's two. And what it is, those are called VASI lights. And they will tell, so basically white over white is you're out of sight. Okay, that's what that means, is I'm a little high. So I'm going to kind of reduce power. I'm going to give myself my last notch of flaps. And then you should see that it's going to go ahead and change to red over white. So if you're red over white, so right now if you could see it change, right, it's at red over white. I know it's kind of hard to see it, but it is in red. If you have red over red, you know, the terminology they use is you're dead. That means you're just too low. If you're red over white, that means you're all right. You know, if you're white over white, that means you're out of sight. So, right, so we're going to continue on down. So now I went red over red, so I went a little bit low, but I do have the runway in sight. So I'm not really going to worry about that now. So here we go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and come down. Once we get past the numbers, we basically reduce power to idle. And you want to kind of flare the airplane up. And that will come down. Perfect. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and put up the flaps, full power. And we still want to wait till 55. You know, if for some reason you think you're not going to be able to make it, then you want to go ahead and abort your takeoff. You just want to stop on the runway. Okay, so there we go. That's our first touch and go. Again, we're waiting for 500 feet. Let's look out the window here. Okay, perfect. Okay, look, so that's good. We're about 70, 70 to 80 is where we want to be when we're climbing. And we are almost at 500. Just got to wait again. Perfect. So now we're going to go ahead and turn left. Now, a lot of times, people say, well, how do you know like where the runway is and stuff like, first of all, you want to look outside. But another thing is just use the compass, right? So I'm looking at the compass. I see that 30 is off to my right-hand side. If you look at there, so that means that's where, where I am. So you can use the compass because that's what runways are based off of. They're based off of the compass directions, right? So like right now, I'm going to go ahead and I want to be basically have the 30 behind me. If you see my heading indicator, right? For the most part, it's right there. I'm a little off, but okay. So we're going to go ahead and just reduce some of the power, and there's the runway right there. And again, we're going to wait. We're not at 1,000 yet, so I'm going to lift the nose up a little bit to try to get to. Okay, there's 1,000. And again, we want to be at 1,800, right? We don't want to continue. We don't want to go too fast, So there we are at 1,000. Let's lower the nose. We're waiting till we get to, there we go, 30. Once we get to 30, we'll go ahead and we'll give our first notch of flaps, okay? All right, there's our first notch. So we're going to go ahead and first we're going to reduce power to 1,500. But it looks like it was already out there, so I'm going to go ahead and reduce my power. I'm going to start our descent. Again, in this moment, when you're starting your descent, there's a descent checklist. You want to make sure that your mixture is rich. Your fuel selector's on both. Make sure your seatbelt's on. Now, you would do this 2 times. On your descent here, you want to check all that. And then right before you land is very important to check. So again, we're going to wait for that 45 degrees. Okay, and I think it's right. The nice thing is if you fly in an airport that you're familiar with, you can actually find, like landmarks where you're like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be and stuff like that, And another thing is you can, if you have the moving map, you can tell where the airport's at. As you can see, I'm right there. So go ahead and give myself next notch of flaps, and then go ahead and start turning towards final. Okay, a little bit overshot it. Okay. Now, when you're on an approach where just there's one runway, it's not a big deal. But you do want to make sure that it is clear. As you can see, we're red over white, so that means we're on a good glide path. But if you're landing in an airport that has 2 runways next to each other, it's very, very important that you are precisely on, because there will be another airplane landing. For example, Hayward, right? Mather, Sacramento, Mather, Stockton. They have parallel runways, and so you want to make sure that you are basically getting lining up on the runway. All right, so we're waiting till we get to the 30. Again, we're good. I know it says red over red. It's fine. So power is reduced. Now we want to basically go ahead and let the kind of flare the airplane, let it come down. Okay, again, we're perfect there. We're going to go ahead and lift up our flaps. And then you're going to go ahead and push full power. We're going to wait till we get to 55. I know I said I was going to just do 2. We're going to do 3. So go ahead and lift up. So an example is, let's just say I haven't flown in a while, right? And what I mean by a while, let's say you haven't flown in 3 months, okay? You haven't flown in 3 months, and you want to take some people up. You technically would have to do the 3 touch and goes by yourself. If it's during the day, you do 3 touch and goes, which we're going to be on our 3rd one. And what that means is once you do that, then you can start taking passengers, right? At night, let's say you want to take somebody flying at night, you would have to do three touch. You wouldn't actually be. It would be three full stop landings. So you need to stop, taxi back, and go. And then that means you would be current for flying at night. Now, whenever you are, there's a 2-year mark where if you haven't flown in every 2 years you have to get this called a biannual flight review. And what happens is every 2 years you need to go ahead and do that. Now, if you have for example, if you get a license, right? So let's say you have your private pilot license and you're coming up on your BFR, and then you got your instrument. Now your 2 years start from that instrument. Okay, let's say my 2 years are coming up, and I get my commercial. 2 years start after that commercial, and let's say I get my multi-engine. 2 years start after the multi-engine. Let's say I get my multi-engine commercial, which usually you would do that at the same time. Now, so every time you get a rating, that actually resets for another 2 years, which is pretty nice, so you don't have to, because you are with a certified examiner, right? And usually you don't have to always do it with an examiner. You can do it with an instructor, but because you did it with, got a rating, that thing resets. So, okay, so we're going again, we're flying. There's that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and reduce power to 1500. Going a little fast this time. We're going to go to flaps down. In aviation, when you are descending and coming to land, it's very important that you are focusing on what you're doing. Now, I've taken up people with me, and I'm talking about real flying. They'll start wanting to talk at land, and I'll tell them, this is very important. I usually will talk about this before I take off, that you need to actually kind of be quiet when I'm coming in for a landing. The reason why is, first of all, you're talking to the tower, right? The tower is giving you instructions, and you're also listening to see if there's other aircraft in the area, as well. So, actually, nothing's on final. Okay, there's the runway coming up. We're going to go ahead and put our second notch of flaps. Okay, we're going to go ahead and turn fire. So basically, this is very important. Now, in commercial aviation, in the airlines, they actually have a requirement that you need to actually, below 10,000 feet, there's, like, you don't talk about how's the kids, what you do last night, how's the family. It's strictly just aviation talk. And that was a rule put in place because of a crash that happened. So, people were distracted when they're coming in for landing and stuff like that. Okay, so we just put our last notch of flash. If everyone can see, we are red over white. So that means we are all right. We're going to continue coming down. As long as we as long as we see that, that means we're on the proper glide path. Now, when you're instrument flying, you would usually have, tuned into a frequency, and then you would actually know. And we will, again, I will go ahead and do that once we do put up an instrument flight plan. Okay, kind of coming down here. Again, you want to make sure that you're looking at the numbers, and once you get past the numbers, you're going to go ahead and go, power is reduced to idle, and you're going to lift the nose up. Now you're looking at the end of the runway, and we're coming. Okay, a little bumpy there. We're going to go ahead and stop, slow it down. Perfect. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and taxi off. So quickly, 3 takeoffs and 3 landings. And go ahead in here. And once you land, you need to cross these hold short lines. So as you can see, these lines are coming up. I'm technically still on the active runway until you pass this little marker there. So now what would happen is I would go ahead and stop, okay? And I would do like an after landing checklist. So for example, I could turn up, bring all my flaps up. You can turn off your strobe lights, you could turn off your landing light, keep your taxi light on. If it was on, turn it back on. Another thing is you would want to set your trim tab for takeoff. And, kind of reduce your mixture that you're on the ground. If you had a transponder code, you want to set it back to 1200. 1200 is the basic VFR flight rule. If you do have a number, that means you're either doing a flight following, which what that means is that someone is watching you. And of course someone is still watching you when you do have 1200, but you technically don't have to be talking to anybody other than like the tower and stuff like that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go now. And you technically are not off of the runway until you pass those lines. So, when you're at a pilot controlled airport, uncontrolled airport, you would report you're clear of the active once you have cleared those lines, Now, for example, if we had a tower here, he would usually say, okay, you know, because runway 20 is not in use, or runway 34 as well, and you know, they're going to let you just go continue. Now, they might say hold short runway 20 at Charlie. So that's what that C is standing for, is Charlie. So I'm on taxiway Charlie. I'm going to be passing runway 20, and it tells you which way is the direction. Right, 20 is basically to the right, and 2 is to the left. So I'm going to go ahead and cross that. And again, you know, now if for some reason somebody had an emergency, they can land on any runway. So that doesn't matter. I mean, you can land on the freeway if you had to, or an emergency and stuff like that. So it just depends on what, you know, land in a field. So, okay, so we're just going to come over here, taxi a little bit more, and then park. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that flight. Again, we're going to do a lot more. I just wanted to kind of get up there, show you, kind of explain to you what's going to be going on. We do see a truck coming there. I don't know, is he going to play chicken with me? No, okay. He looks like he's stopping. It's kind of cool about the AI, you know. Oh, I guess I was wrong. Look at that. He cut me off. So, yeah, that wouldn't happen in real life, you know. Sometimes they stop, sometimes they don't. It just depends. All right, perfect. So we're going to go ahead and stop right here. All right, excellent. So we're going to go ahead and set our parking brake. Now, what we would do is we would want to turn off our master, but I'm just going to kind of go outside and have a look at the plane. And there's a plane. All right, so let's go ahead and go back inside. Let's go ahead and shut down the aircraft. So the first thing we would do is we turn off avionics. You never want to, you know, okay, avionics is turned off. Now we'll go ahead and turn off our nav light, our taxi light. We keep our beacon on. The reason why is because of it's still spinning. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the mixture and we're going to pull it all the way to idle cutoff, right? So I'm going to go ahead and pull that off to idle cutoff. Okay, so now the airplane's turned off. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our key, we're going to turn it to the off position, we're going to go ahead and turn off the master. And that's pretty much it. So again, thank you. I appreciate it. Please, if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. And I'll see you in our next flight. I'll figure out where we're going to go, and then we'll hop in it, and we'll go ahead and go there. All right? Thank you again. I appreciate it. I hope you liked this video. Again, I'm not an instructor. It's just for entertainment purposes only. For some reason you have any questions about, you know, if you're training or what, please reach out to a certified flight instructor because they are a certified flight instructor. All right. Thank you. Take care.